Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah-Brooke Stiles, Clinical Director at Mind Body Integrative Therapy. I wanted to create this video around this idea of completing defensive actions. So often in my practice, I work with clients who've been through a lot of trauma in their lives, and there are some common threads among people who have been through trauma. There is oftentimes this feeling of stuckness that people feel. There's often this sense of powerless, of guilt, feeling like they could have, should have done something different in any given situation. What I've learned through many years of working with clients is that a big issue in trauma is, well, let's just start with what trauma feels like, right? Trauma can be a number of different things, but the commonality is that it is something that the system, the body, the brain, does not know how to cope with in that moment. It is beyond what it can navigate and handle in that moment. And so there are a number of things that happen in the body and brain that are very for the purpose of surviving, right? So sometimes that's fighting, sometimes that's fleeing, and sometimes that's freezing up. So when you look at the animal world, and you take the stereotypical example of a animal fleeing for their life from a predator, they may try to fight it, right? They may try to run from it. But eventually, say they start running and the predator is coming up too close to them, their last defense is to freeze. And it's not something to do intentionally. It's a very instinctual reaction that happens in the nervous system. And they will fall to the ground and play dead. And what's happening is all this cortisol and adrenaline and all the stress hormone is just flooding the body. But they are very much stuck in this nervous system response of freeze. So say in this scenario, the predator thinks the animal has died and has moved on. And so this animal has lived, and they eventually stand up. And what they do is they just shake for a good amount of time. And what they're doing is they're literally shaking that cortisol and adrenaline out of their system. So humans don't do this. Humans hold trauma in their body for years and years and years, most of the time. And our brains are really, really intelligent, and then they're also limited in their intelligence. So our brain cannot always determine, or maybe ever determine, what has been in the past and what is in the present. It also doesn't decipher between emotional threat and physical threat. So if you're thinking that trauma is only physical actions, it really isn't. Emotional threats, neglect, bullying, emotional abuse, those are all experienced as just as big of a threat as a physical threat. So the human doesn't really know what to do with this experience, and it stores it in the body. And one thing I work with clients a lot on is completing defensive actions. So I'll give you some examples because it's a little hard to explain what I mean. So say you were in a car accident, a terrible car accident, and you were stuck in the car, right? The side door had you jammed in and you couldn't get out of the steering wheel, right? So you're completely stuck. And the body and the brain in that moment cannot tolerate or navigate the situation. And so a number of things kind of shut down in the body and the brain. Maybe we freeze. After some attempts of fleeing, we can't get out. So our body kind of goes in this, okay, we gotta just stay put. 10 years down the road, right, you still have this feeling of stuckness. You don't, you feel trapped. You feel like you can't get out of the memories of this event. Maybe you feel trapped in a relationship. Maybe you feel trapped in a job. You just have this overall sense of like everything's just stuck, right? And what the instinctual thing to do is to complete a protective action, right? And the brain hasn't figured out like, hey, that was 10 years ago. We are no longer stuck in this car. It hasn't caught up to that, right? So it doesn't know time like that and that it's been completed. What will alert the brain it's completed and the body to know that it no longer has to protect itself is if we complete what would have been the defense action in that moment. So that can look like several different things. Sometimes I'm talking to clients and we're talking about this car accident and I ask, what do your legs feel like right now when we're talking? And some people will say, I feel like I need to get up and run. And I say, go do that. Get up right in this moment and run. Because what you're doing is you're completing a defensive action that couldn't take place 10 years ago. So sometimes it's a physical thing, like get up out of your chair and move your body, right? Like that's what it needs to do to register that the defense action has now been completed. Now we are no longer in danger and we can return to homeostasis. Sometimes it's not a physical thing. Sometimes we can use imagery and different techniques to visualize the defensive action, of pausing that memory and going back to it and redoing the narrative, right? That person imagining being back in that car. And now I want you to imagine being able to push the steering wheel away from your body and you get out of the car and you remove your body from the car. And now we have used the brain to create a new storyline. And that's kind of the coolest part of like the brain being intelligent, but not super good at deciphering like real and fake, because the brain registers that as though it actually happened. And something incredible happens when defensive actions are completed, whether using imagery or physically moving, is the body and brain registers that the threat is over and I can now move forward in not such a defensive state. I can return to homeostasis. So I'd love to answer any questions you guys have about this. I hope you come visit again. We will be going over different topics each day, sometimes doing some activities, some skills and tools, and sometimes some psychoeducation. So let me know what you'd like to hear about, and I hope to see you soon.